Hey, it's Greg Stanley. If you're listening to this podcast, you know I love everything automotive. This passion has expanded to include being a car specialist consultant for RM Sotheby's. So if you need assistance buying or consigning a collector car at any one of our online or live auctions, including Scottsdale, Amelia Island, or Monterey, you can reach one of our car specialists at rmsotheby's.com, or you can email me directly at gstanley@rmsotheby's.com. I just want to give a quick thanks to Euroclassics for sponsoring this episode. Euroclassics is all about collector cars, from servicing your new BMW M5 to prepping your Porsche for the racetrack to executing a total restoration on your favorite classic. They do it all from routine maintenance to performance upgrades to appraisals and everything in between. You can learn more about its owner, Dale Oaks, by listening to episode number 65 of this podcast. And you can find Euroclassics in the Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana service area and online at euroclassics.com. Classics, CLASSIX.com.
This is the Collector Car Podcast, the home for the auto enthusiast. Join Greg Stanley as he applies over 25 years of insights and analytical experience to the collector car market. He will interview the experts and throw in some fun stuff as well.
Welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. Hey, it's Greg. I got a great guest today. This is really cool because I like to dabble in the arts, and we got a true artist on our podcast today. I'd like to welcome Dave Snyder. Dave, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Greg?
Fantastic. I've been meaning to catch up with you for a while. I've been a fan of your work for many years now, and I've seen you at all the major auctions, a lot of different events, and it turns out we only live about, 20 miles away from each other, so it's about time I got you on the podcast.
We know so many people.
Right.
Yeah, that we're friends with the same people, but I think I ran into you at Amelia Island.
Yep. Yeah. So it took a show in Florida to get two local guys to connect up. So, yeah, no, that's really great. And you do such amazing work. And so for our audience that maybe isn't familiar with your work, can you tell us overall what you do and where we can find it to kind of kick off this podcast?
Well, this is my 23rd year. You can find the work at davidsnydercarart.com, and that's SNYDER, carart.com. It's 23 years of doing this, and the way I started out was I like to tell stories. There's a lot of artists that do a part of a car, an individual car, but I try to put as many cars in as I can and tell a story. And one thing that is more important, or is important to me as the car, is the architecture, the signage of the day.
Right.
And that's where I go with it, is doing old gas stations, drive-ins, drive-in restaurants, fast food, around America's love for the automobile, from starting with the 50s going into the 70s muscle.
Yeah, and I love what you do because you put it, like you said, put it in the period. And it looks like, in some instances where you have the right reference points, you'll put it in the original dealership, correct?
Oh, I've done all the supercar dealerships, I think. I've done Yenko 3 times. I've done Mr. Norm's Grand Spalding Dodge 4 times. I've done Dana Chevrolet, Ace Wilson's Royal Pontiac, Tasca Ford. So, yeah, if you look at the website, a lot of it's sold out, but if you look at the website, you can see, some of the supercar dealerships, and a lot of research goes into that. In fact, Chevrolet, or Yenko Chevrolet, I've actually gone to Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, and sat there in front of what's left of the dealership and sketched the dealership. Same with Mr. Norm's Grand Spalding Dodge, taking a trip up to Chicago to see what the building looks like now, and then try to imagine what it was in 1967 or 1971, and put in the details and the signage and get those memories going.
Yeah, it's really cool because it's a snapshot back in the time, back to the dealership when these cars were new, so it really helps kind of put it, I guess, make you feel like you were really there back in 68 or 69 for those of us who were not alive at the time, right?
Well, I was, and we used to, I remember the ads in CarCraft magazine for Yenko Chevrolet and Grand Spalding Dodge and Tasca Ford and Dana Chevrolet. So it is bringing back memories for me. We're of a little different generation, but it still try to fuel that memory.
Right. And how much research do you have to do? Because I do notice that you did one like the Las Vegas Strip back in the day when Dean Martin was headlining. That had to be quite a bit of work to get the buildings, fairly correct, and the signage, and even thing from the prime rib from the prime rib bar or whatever special.
Yeah, 99-cent prime rib. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So how much walk us through the research process you have to kind of create some of these period correct scenes.
Thank God for eBay and Google. I have a library now of, for example, with the Vegas scenes that I've done GM, I've done Ford, and I've done Mopar in Vegas. I have purchased a lot of postcards, old programs from the casinos. So if you see Dean Martin on the sign, Dean Martin played. Somebody will come up to me and say that, that guy never played that casino, and you don't want to say you want to bet, but you can pull out the research and say, yeah, in 1969 he was at that casino, or that the research has to be correct. Even though I still get letters. Right,
yeah. Now, I got to imagine the composition is fairly complex, because some of these you'll have 20 classic cars, and there are some in the foreground, some are in the background, some are turned sideways. They're not all to perfect perspective. So how are you able to get them so spot on? I can't imagine you freestyle all these, or do you?
Yeah, I do. In the case of, for example, Blue Oval Strip, which is the newest of the Vegas scenes. It was a 60-inch wide painting, and that took me almost 3 weeks to draw. I remember after working on it for 2 weeks and oh, look, I can get this this gas station in, and this was not there, so I'm going to did a lot of editing on the drawing. And I remember my wife and business partner Marion coming up into the studio and saying, Dave, I think you need to put the pencil down and start painting.
Right. Yeah, you can get lost in the detail prep work, right?
So that was almost 3 weeks of research and drawing just to get the drawing done before I even started putting color down.
Right. Wow. Now, do you ever have the urge, because I know a lot of your paintings are muscle cars or performance cars, the ones you would see at a car show. Do you ever have the urge to put a random period correct, like four-door sedan in the background somewhere?
Well, there was a case when I did at the Mopar Nats. It used to be, the party street used to be Bryce Road, and I've done Bryce Road twice, where guys are putting out water boxes and people are doing burnouts, and then guys get arrested. And when they do get arrested, people come in or get ticketed for doing a burnout. People will come and throw $5 bills into his window, to help him pay the fine. I mean, it was the big party. The Mopar guys are nuts. So I've done Bryce Road a couple of times, and one time I put in, way in the background, I put in my Town and Country minivan that I haul artwork around in. So yes, I do. Okay.
Well, there's a little Easter egg for any of those that might be looking for something fun to do as they peruse your website. Okay. Well, that's really cool. And you don't
that's the only time I can think of putting really a modern car in.
Right. Okay. Well, and you don't do just muscle cars. Just call out, I do see a Porsche dealership and a Cinetti's Ferrari dealership. So you do have a little bit of something for everyone, right?
I like the old dealerships. Again, Cinetti, I've done the Manhattan location in 1963, and then in 1972 I did the Greenwich, Connecticut dealership. Porsche, I've done Brumos, and that was a commission from Brumos Porsche, and then did the Max Hoffman in 1956. Did Max Hoffman, one of the first importers of Porsche in the United States.
Now, where do you source the reference pics for your cars? Are they from car shows that you've attended? I mean, because you don't want to have something that's not factory correct on these cars, like the wrong hubcaps or something.
Exactly. When I did, for example, did the Max Hoffman and did 56 Porsches, I went to school on 56 Porsches. I bought several books. Amazon loves me. I make sure the reference is correct, or as correct as I can get it at the time with the reference that I'm able to collect.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I did notice in one of your paintings you have the 1967 Shelby Mustang Super Snake, one of one ever built with a 427 big block in there to test, I believe it was Goodyear tires. Now,
And that was Melbourne's Ford in Long Beach, yeah. And Melbourne's Ford, that car was sold after Shelby and Goodyear was done with their tire tests on that. It went to Melbourne's Ford. So that is correct, and it has the correct white walls on it, which I've had people come up and say, I've never seen a Shelby with white walls. And that's another thing where you want to say, yeah, you want to bet, here's the reference.
well, I love that attention to detail because that was my question. Was this really sold at you said Melbourne? Or
Melbourne's Ford on
Yeah.
Long Beach Boulevard in Long Beach, California, yes.
So which came first? You wanted to do the dealership or you wanted to do the car?
I wanted to do the dealership, and I knew about the car, and it was sold through that dealership. And I'm working on the painting, and lo and behold, it comes up for auction at the Mecum Indy auction. And it was just a coincidence that it was, all of a sudden, there's the car in front of me after I did all this research. And the painting was done, and I actually displayed the painting at the auction with the car.
I'm glad I asked that question because I would have bet money that you were chasing the car first. So I'm glad I asked the question.
No, it was the dealership first. I needed to get some West Coast. I did all these East Coast and Midwest dealerships, and I was looking for something to do in the West Coast.
Right. Okay. No, that's really, really cool. Okay. Well, if you would, tell us, where did this passion for cars come from? And then how did that lead? Did that lead into art, or did art, like you're already an artist and then you wrapped it into your passion for cars?
I've always been interested in cars. When I was 6, I knew I wanted to be an artist. That's where I wanted to go. I went to a very prestigious school in Cincinnati called Central Academy of Commercial Art, where they train art directors and designers for the commercial advertising career. I spent 25 years doing that and always painted the weekends in the evenings and always had an interest in historical transportation history. I've done airplanes, I've done trains. In fact, I've got a couple now that I've just recently released again, one with an airplane scene and one with a train scene. But I always had a passion for transportation history. And a publisher in Canada asked me to do a couple for him around the automobile. And that led to where I am now 23 years later, and probably 175 paintings done of automotive art and around America's passion for the automobile.
Right. Okay. Now, is there one car you haven't painted that is on your list, or have you painted pretty much all the ones you've always wanted to?
No, I want to do a Volkswagen dealership, because the car that I learned how to drive here in Cincinnati, hilly Cincinnati, was a 1963 Volkswagen bus.
Was it a 21 window, a 23, or
not.
just a regular?
No.
Okay.
It was just the regular, the regular combi bus. But it was still, it's a great car to learn to drive in. I mean, it really is.
Wow, that would be really cool. And just a quick shout out, well, check out the Collector Car Podcast Instagram stories, because I'm going to visit Dave's shop and take a couple little videos of him working on his current project. And could you share what your current project is, or at least the type of car?
Right now I'm doing a commission, and it's for a Christmas gift, so I can't talk too much about it. It's Yenko Chevrolet. I have a project that is about to go back on the easel. Tim Wellborn, Wellborn Muscle Car Museum down in Alabama, is bringing 5 or 6 cars to Amelia Island. And I'm doing a painting around a Dairy Queen ice cream stand that he and Pam Wellborn used to hang out in and used to drive that was their cruising spot. And so it's these 5 or 6 iconic 1970 muscle cars in this Dairy Queen. And that's what I'll be working on when you come over.
Okay. Well, that'd be really cool to see for sure. Now, I do want to point out canvas is not your only medium of choice. You actually paint on some other cool stuff. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your other offerings there?
There was an idea that I had. There's always this synergy between guitar collecting and car collecting. They kind of go together for some reason. In 2013, I had this idea. One of my favorite charities is curing kids cancer, and I wanted to do something special for them. I'm going to do this painting on a guitar. I went to Gibson. Gibson donated the guitar. Unfortunately, I had to go down to Nashville and pick up the guitar and take a tour of the factory.
Oh, that's tough.
Somebody twisted my arm to do that. So, I actually picked out the guitar. And then it went back, after I did the painting, I went back to Gibson, and they added a bunch of really, really cool stuff to this Gibson Les Paul. And at auction, that guitar brought $105,000 for curing kids cancer.
Wow.
Since then, I've done a couple of other charity guitars and done probably 15 commissions now on paintings of people's individual cars on guitars or a whole collection so that they can take their guitar and actually display it with the cars.
That's really cool, and I do see you have a really cool 65, 66 Shelby GT350 one that I personally like a lot. So that's really cool that you're able to expand it into a new form.
Yeah, it was just kind of an idea that I had and ran with it, and it's turned into, 2 or 3 a year I'll do as a commission or as a charity auction.
Do you do any paintings of cars on French horns? I used to play French horn. No?
It's a little bit hard to get the acrylic paint to stick to that brass.
That would be a little tougher for sure.
But I admire the fact that it's a tough little instrument to play.
Yes, it is. Now, how did your passion for cars begin? Was there a neighbor that had a cool car that your parents, did they have a cool car?
No, they always had things like a 53 Studebaker and a 56 Ford Town Sedan and just kind of run-of-the-mill stuff. But I did have this passion for cars. I remember my brother and I used to sit on the front porch and watch the cars go by. And this would probably be late 50s. I would take GM, and my brother got everything else. Ford, Chrysler, Studebaker,
right.
Hudson. GM always won. We'd tick off the cars that went by in, say, a given time, an hour or something. And at that time, I think GM had 55% of the market in the late 50s. And it was proven out by my brother and I just playing this little game on the front porch watching the cars go by. I also remember in 1958 going to Beasley Ford in Cincinnati. Some Cincinnati guys will remember that, on Madison and Grandin Road, and seeing the very first Edsels. That was a huge deal. They take the paper off the window, and boom, there was the new cars.
Now, do you have any of these cool new cars in your own garage?
No, I don't. I have like I said, Chrysler minivans that I haul artwork around in.
Yep.
But I have an 03, our cruising car is an 03 Corvette.
Oh, okay.
And on my 50th birthday, my wife and business partner surprised me with it was my 50th birthday. It was Corvette's 50th anniversary. So what's a girl to do? Buy a new Corvette so that's our cruising car. And it was a true surprise. We were at a restaurant, Greg, Montgomery Inn in Montgomery, the rib place.
Great ribs. Yep.
We had a party there in one of the party rooms for my 50th birthday. And unbeknownst to me, they brought the car around as I exited the restaurant with a big bow on it.
Wow.
So it was a true surprise.
Now, what color's the car?
It is Quicksilver with a torch red interior, the bright red interior.
Great
I
combo.
just think about all these 50s Mercedes with the silver and the red interior. And that's kind of the look I was always going for, and she knew that, and she found this car. It was a dealership search, so it took a while to find it.
Right, okay. Well, you got to give credit for your wife there for sure. That's a wonderful 50th birthday present.
It made all the rest of the wives in the neighborhood kind of angry because, the husband said, hey, he got a Corvette for his 50th birthday.
I'm going to have to make sure my wife listens to this before my 50th birthday.
Why don't we get together and I'll show her how it's done.
That's awesome. All right, well, now, what is your dream car? Like, what would you love to have in your garage?
Depends upon the mood. I'm sitting here looking at my easel right now that has some Yenko Camaros on it. I'm not a go-fast guy. I like art. I can see a 1962 Pontiac Catalina convertible.
Oh, nice.
In like a blue with a three-tone interior, three-tone blue and silver interior. Or when I'm in a go-fast mood, of course, you want to go all the way. Anything that Ford drove in the 1966 Le Mans would be fine with me. Cobras are sexy, and that would be fun, too. It just depends upon the mood. A 1941 Cadillac, probably, to me, one of the most beautiful cars ever made. So it's just, I like them all.
Right, yeah, you're like me. Every time I think I nail it down to one car, I see something else.
Yeah, maybe a 1959 Thunderbird.
Right.
That would be fun or a 32 Highboy. It just depends upon the mood.
Right, yep. All right, well, before I get to my little game at the end here, if you could tell our listeners again, how's the best way that they can find you and your paintings?
The website is davidsnydercarart.com.
Yeah, and I did warn you, a game I'd like to play at the end here is called Keep, Cash, and Crush. So I give you 3 cars, and you have to pick one to keep forever, one that you will cash in, and then one you don't mind sending to the crusher. And so I decided to use your paintings as reference points.
Really?
And so,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me get my pencil out, and I'll jot down some notes here.
Okay. So Let's see. I've got 3 cars here. One of them is, now some of these are, well, okay, so I'll just let them off for you here. So one of them is a Chinetti Ferrari Daytona coupe, not convertible.
Okay.
One of them is a Yenko Camaro. And then the third one is very specific. It's a 1966 Shelby GT350 Hertz model, but it's the red and gold one you have in your picture because I only made I think 17 of those.
Ooh, yeah.
So those are your 3 cars, the Chinetti Ferrari Daytona Coupe, the Yenko Camaro, and the 66 Shelby GT350 Hertz, but the red and gold one. So which car would you keep forever? Which car would you cash in? And then which car would you send to the crusher?
I want to be able to drive a car without, if it gets a ding or something like that, it's no big deal. So that would be my keeper, would be the GT350.
Ah, nice. I like that thought process. Okay, so that's your keeper, the GT350.
Yeah, and you'd sell the Daytona because Ferraris have just gone nuts.
That leaves what?
The Yenko for the crusher. There's a blue million of them out there, and it's a straight line car. I don't want a straight line car. I want to be able to drive it.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you're the first guest that ever took driving enjoyment into it as the very first factor. So that's really cool. Yeah, I like the way you thought about that. You don't want to have to worry about it too much, so you're not picking the highest dollar car to keep forever. I like that.
And I knew you played this game, and I couldn't wait to see what you picked for me. Those were some really interesting and not a hard choice.
Well, that means I got to do better next time. So I'll have you on, and I got to make you sweat a little bit more.
Okay, we'll do that.
Well, Dave, thank you so much for your time, and I know we'll be seeing each other hopefully next year at some of the concourse shows or some of the auctions. Yeah. So until then, for our listeners, please be sure to check him out on his website. So, Dave, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the interview.
Thanks for listening to the Collector Car Podcast. Don't forget to give us a nice rating on iTunes and be sure to follow us on Instagram and everywhere else at the Collector Car Podcast.